So Elon Musk ally Peter Thiel's been saying the quiet part out loud, and we'll have a look at that. I wouldn't go so far as to say he is Elon Musk's friend, frenemy maybe. They do go back to PayPal days, part of that PayPal mafia, and we'll get into all that. If you don't know much about Peter Thiel, you're going to find out a lot more. If you do, you'll find out new things as well. And we will have a look at this. Carl from Secular Talk has caught him saying the quiet part out loud. And after that, we're going to have a look at a new podcast called Dystopia Now. This episode's about Peter Thiel. I'll show you a snippet and point you in the right direction for that. It's actually a funny podcast and informative about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a bit of a far-right lunatic, I could say, and we'll find out more about this. And he does have a lot to do with the US government right now. And so let's get into it.
So one of the things I love is when conservatives accidentally tell the truth.
Okay, so I'm going to stop Carl there right away because Peter Thiel is not really conservative. In fact, he's pretty radical, and we'll find that out. And I think Carl actually knows that already.
They say the thing that they would normally say behind closed doors, and they get a little too comfortable, a little too cocky. They say it in front of the cameras, and then I don't know if he had that moment where he realized, shouldn't have said that, but he should have. So here's Peter Thiel. Now, take a look at him. This guy terrifies me. He is a MAGA billionaire, and this clip here really says it all, right? Because for the longest time, you all know, the right and MAGA, they've all stood up and said, bro, we're pro-worker, we're anti-elite, we're anti-establishment, bro. So, like, this is where regular people belong. This is where working people belong in our movement. We've heard that a lot, right? Well, here's a MAGA billionaire who accidentally tells the truth, what he really thinks of you. And as you listen to this, think, where would working people fit in a movement that includes this guy? Here we go.
In fact, Peter Thiel has said a lot of things out loud over many years. It's just he's been more in the background than Elon Musk. Elon Musk, of course, has been very much in the foreground, in the governments, in the media. Peter Thiel has not so much at times. He has. Where I live in New Zealand, he has been, because he basically bought citizenship here. He's bought land here as a kind of bolt hole and escape from Armageddon if it happens to all go to custard in the US. So he's been in the media here.
Obama was Harvard Law. I think Kerry was Harvard undergrad. And there was some way, the Democratic Party used to be more elite. And then when Biden said he was a transitional candidate, it wasn't a transition. He was not going to have a sex change operation, but it was transitional from smart to dumb, from elite to very non-elite. And then, Kamala was even, Howard was not Harvard. You couldn't even point this out. This is probably a racist thing to say or something. Right. And then by the time you get to Walz, it's way worse. The credentials are even dumber than Kamala's. There are no smart people left.
I can't believe he said these things out loud. I can't believe he didn't realize how this comes across. This is an astonishing clip. This is like elitist credentialism defined. Have you ever seen anything this elitist in your... Please, did you know that the Democratic candidates didn't even go to Harvard? Yes. Yes. Bro.
So he goes deeper than that. If you know anything about Peter Thiel, and over the years I've read a lot, I've heard a lot of what he said and on podcasts and everything. It goes way deeper than that. He's definitely an elitist. He talks about IQ a lot. He does not respect anybody who is not in his realm, very elite. He went to Stanford. So this is no surprise, and he has said it out loud many times.
Thank you. Sincerely, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope there are some people in my audience who are MAGA. I really hope you're out there.
I doubt that very much. maybe a few.
What he's doing here, he's being honest. He looks down on you if you didn't go to an Ivy League school. He looks down on you if you don't have at least millions of dollars. He thinks you're a bad person. He thinks you have a poor work ethic. He thinks you're unintelligent. If you don't have multi-millions or billions, and if you didn't go to an Ivy League college, he thinks you're a peasant. You should be a corporate slave. you should be underneath him. If he's being honest, he would say, I'm not even sure these people should have the right to vote. You should probably have to own a certain amount of property or have a certain net worth in order you should be able to vote.
Now, it seems like hyperbole what Carl's saying here, but the more you dig into what Peter Thiel thinks, it's really not that far off, especially women. He would probably prefer that women wouldn't vote.
Peter Thiel, this guy who you just listened to, he wants to make a libertarian paradise out of Greenland. And Trump picked as his ambassador to Greenland an acolyte of Peter Thiel. And at the time when he picked him, somebody tweeted, "It's all going to plan." Why? He wants to steal Greenland for Peter Thiel.
Again, people might find this hard to believe, but I've talked about network states, this idea of network states, these tech billionaires talked about that, where they can have their own territories. So this would be something that they actually would want to do.
He wants the mineral wealth to go to Elon Musk, and he wants the island itself to be Peter Thiel's libertarian experiment. We literally have billionaires who are warmongering to steal entire territories for themselves, for their own ideological project, their own hyper-capitalist project, profit, money, power, control.
So they are already doing this, not in Greenland, but if you look up network cities, network states, they have managed to do this in different places around the world, or trying to do it. This is something that they actually do want to do. So Greenland would be somewhere that they would want to. And I just wonder if that is behind Trump's talk about Greenland and J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance has a very close connection with Peter Thiel, as we're going to see.
This is what they're doing. This is who they are. And this is what they think of you, right? You're the help. You're the help. Please, you don't even go to Harvard. The credentials are so poor, my dear.
Why do you?
And this is a bit from an interview with Peter Thiel not so long ago. This is that same interview that Carl had there. Just a small section of what Peter Thiel's saying here.
Sort of first in. I mean, I know you're a contrarian thinker in general, but when it comes to all of these tech guys that are now part of the administration, many of whom, I mean, Elon and David Sachs, guys that you started PayPal with 20 plus years ago.
I think to some extent people changed their minds and shifted. You know, I've known, you know, where someone like Elon is, you know, is sort of like, in some ways he's one of a kind. In some ways he's paradigmatic for a lot of these things. I've known Elon since 2000. And for the first 20 years, I wouldn't call him a conventionally liberal person, but, you know, I think I would think that it was a little bit more on the, you know, liberal, vaguely libertarian side. And then for a variety of reasons, you know, he really shifted a lot. I think my story in a way is not quite as interesting, because
it is very interesting, but we're going to get more into this. Elon has he said, made this change, or at least publicly recently, but Peter Thiel's had these views, pretty far right views, for a very long time. So he's pretty happy about what he's seeing, the changes going on in the US. It's exactly what he wanted to see. He's been surprised by how it has happened. David Sachs is involved too.
I've had a lot of these beliefs for a longer period of time.
Now, let's get into this podcast here, Dystopia Now. Now, it's on different platforms. I heard this episode on Spotify. I don't think this one's on YouTube, but it also is on Patreon. I'm going to play a snippet here of one episode about Peter Thiel.
So to start off with Peter Thiel, I know a lot of you probably have heard of Peter Thiel, and I doubt that it's news for anyone listening to this show that he's a venture capitalist, that he supports Donald Trump. You probably have even heard at some point of, you know, this kind of weird monarchy, post-democracy stuff that he's into. You know, we'll talk about that, but we also want to try to, if we can, get into some things that you may not have heard before about Peter Thiel.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, so Emil, who is Peter Thiel?
Quotes,
who's this guy? A gay Republican? What? Why?
Yeah.
So this podcast, there's one comedian and an intellectual together. It's a good mix, and it's really entertaining.
He's a bit of an enigma. He's a contrarian. He likes to disagree with people. He likes to hold these sort of aberrant, anomalous views that aren't particularly popular.
I mean, I'm just thinking, look, I'm not trying to stereotype too much, but like Germany, white South African, then the US, this guy is like really on a racism world tour.
Yeah.
He's hitting some of the biggest Nazi locations in the world. He's trying to diversify his portfolio with like where you could just find some of the most racist white people on the planet.
Yeah.
And so they're referring to where he has lived, born in Germany, lived in South Africa, and now to the US, and he's involved in kind of far-right politics in the US. And others are from there too. Elon Musk has similar history. David Sachs, they've all spent time in South Africa, for instance.
Yeah. And then, he's here in the US supporting Trump, contributing to the escalation of racial tensions in the US. So, yeah, I mean, he sort of made his fortune through PayPal, where he was one of the co-founders of PayPal back in 98 or 1997. And then he ultimately sold PayPal for more than $1 billion to eBay.
Before he had this like edgelord publication, I think it was called the Stanford Review. And this is where he met some of the people that he ended up working with later on, hiring at PayPal. And this was just like, you know, it was like the 1980s version of what's happening now, basically. Like, you know, the wokes are ruining everything. Like, why should we have to let women advance? Like a bunch of racist stuff. And it seems like he has kind of like, he made some friends there. And then
Yeah, she's not kidding about that, what he wrote back then. And as I said, he hasn't been quiet. He's been writing this thing going way back before 2000 and when he was a student, and really hasn't changed his views that much. And it's pretty terrifying, quite frankly, considering the power these people are getting now.
sort of carried this forward with him to the rest of his career.
Yeah. And it was 98 when
98, okay.
co-founded PayPal,
Yes.
which is supposed to be this sort of libertarian alternative to government issued currency.
We've talked about the PayPal mafia, particularly on our episode on the tech riot with Jacob Silverman in this group of men, and I'm saying men, not because I'm erasing women, because it was literally men, white men. David Sachs is in there. Elon Musk is in there. There's Reid Hoffman, who is a big Democratic donor who also agrees with these people on a lot of things, but, you know, feels like he can get it done through the Democratic Party. This PayPal mafia, that is like probably in some ways like traceable to like the birth of our current terrible moment is in that PayPal mafia.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this is the reason that I'm talking about Peter Thiel. Like, this podcast has developed into more about Elon Musk because of the position that he's got into in government and in business. But Peter Thiel is there too. So this PayPal mafia there. And David Sachs is in there too. He's now the AI and crypto czar for Trump. Now, these people have got a lot of power, and I don't think it's wrong what they're saying there about that. Now, this is why I do want to talk more about Peter Thiel in episodes if you'll come with me on that journey. And some people will, some people won't. But I want to talk more about these kinds of people, not just Elon. Elon's the most famous, causing the most trouble at the moment, but these others are there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the platform that launched Musk, Thiel. Like you said, Reid Hoffman, he's a more likable, a more empathetic individual, it seems, than he doesn't have the same kind of far-right views that Thiel and a lot of the others. Thiel, his views on the ineffectiveness of politics changed in 2016, right when he came out and he gave this speech at the Republican National Convention in support of Trump.
Yeah, and that is the time also where I am in New Zealand that Peter Thiel was involved in New Zealand. It was a surprise. It was in the media here and elsewhere, I guess. I don't know if you know about this, but he bought land here. He basically bought citizenship from the government at the time. He invested in the country. I think it was $5 million or something in exchange for citizenship. And he has said, part of his philosophy is that if things turn to custard, if things go really bad, I guess he's looking around for somewhere in the world to escape to. And he has talked about this recently. Heard him in an interview saying, maybe Costa Rica, maybe New Zealand going to. He didn't say that he had citizenship here, but he does.
In 1995, he wrote The Diversity Myth with David Sachs. David Sachs we'll talk about at length. David Sachs has probably been one of the billionaires that's been most active in trying to change the politics of San Francisco. Thiel goes into views in this book that he got in big trouble for about sexual assault. And he had to apologize for these statements when he was supporting Trump's campaign.
My impression, at least, is that since Trump was elected, he's done a bit more to like cozy up to Trump once again.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Peter Thiel and Thiel money clearly has a lot of influence Trump's 2024 campaign. Like Peter Thiel has been the biggest backer of JD Vance. The reason.
Yes, so you might know about this. Peter Thiel backed JD Vance. So, it has to be remembered that if Trump dies, or in the next election, Trump's getting old like Biden did, he won't, and he can't run again. So JD Vance could be the next president, and backed by Peter Thiel, just the way that Elon Musk backed Trump. I'm sure Elon might be involved too if that happens, if they get an opportunity to do that.
JD Vance's political career is because
$15 million that were donated to Vance when he was running for Senate in Ohio back in 20.
So that's a drop in the bucket of what they could, as we've seen Elon donating over $250 million, and Peter Thiel is a multi-billionaire as well. Not as wealthy as Elon at the moment. Elon's wealth could go down, but that's another story.
Thiel and Vance go back a long ways. I mean, Thiel hired Vance back in 2017. So there's a long history. I think this connection also is important to note because it's yet another link between the Trump presidency and the ideologies we've been talking about. Vance was had his foot in that puddle, as it were. And just not only is there Musk, running Doge, maybe the second or maybe the first most powerful person in the U.S., but you have J.D. Vance with his deep connections to Peter Thiel.
I'm skipping through things here. Obviously, I'm not going to play the whole thing, just a snippet, just a taste. I do highly recommend listening to this. It's pretty entertaining, and it's not just about Peter Thiel, the whole thing. It's about this whole group of people and the philosophy of a lot of these billionaires in Silicon Valley and how they're having an influence on politics. It's really interesting stuff.
His views seem to align most closely with those accelerationists.
Okay,
the people who want to just hit the pedal to the metal, get there as quickly as possible.
Peter Thiel is also a big fan of these people that are more associated with right-wing accelerationism. And, the best way for us to go forward as a society is to just allow this technological progress to happen as fast as possible, and it will have very negative consequences, but we need that to achieve in this case, libertarian utopia of our dreams. It's really just let's go through hell to get to something that's even a little worse than that,
Yeah, I mean, there are other people. Mark Andreessen is another one. He has written things of extremely tech optimist, accelerating tech, accelerating AI, and just see where it leads. And Elon Musk has talked about some of the possible drawbacks of AI, but still he's right up there competing in AI. They're just doing it anyway, no matter what. But there's a whole philosophy behind that, which they do talk about, but we're not going to go through that here.
Right. So there's a lot of overlap between right-wing accelerationism and AI accelerationism.
Yes.
A lot
So right-wing accelerationism, AI acceleration joined together. That's kind of where we are. And these people have a lot of influence with the current government, and that's what they want. They don't talk about it to the peasants, but they have talked about it, for years. Elon Musk has got this futuristic Mars project, which he's talked about. It's like a Mars utopia. Peter Thiel's a little bit different, but they really are aligned in ideology in many ways.
I think part of the excitement about Trump winning the election in 2016 and then more recently is Trump's ability to tear down and destroy the systems that exist. And that's part of right-wing accelerationism. We live in this multicultural society. It doesn't work. Democracy has failed. How then do we actually change our society to become better according to, at least with respect to the criteria and values of the right-wing, far-right worldview? And the accelerations would say, well, we need to accelerate the collapse of society. And in the ashes, in the smoke of the civilization that has been demolished, that's destroyed itself, then we can rebuild an ethno-nationalist state that is racially homogenous and so on. And then that is a society, finally, that will be able to flourish, unlike our current system. So that's right-wing accelerationism.
So yes, if you look at what's happening now, so you see with Doge, Elon, really, is it an exaggeration saying he's dismantling the government from within? And not talking about this, rebuilding it in the way that they want to do it. So a lot of these right-wing billionaires, tech billionaires, would be pretty happy with what they see going on here, that Elon's doing the job for them. And to get the chance to do that, I don't think they had thought that they'd get this chance. They're talking about the network states, these smaller places elsewhere, like Greenland or these city states, but they're getting the chance to do it in the US. I'm sure they're incredibly happy with what's happening and with what Elon is doing here.
And AI accelerationism is just kind of what you were saying, that it's this view that technology is good. So it's a very technophilic view. So more technology that we have, the better things become. So we should try to increase the rapidity of scientific and technological innovation to get us there as soon as possible. To put it, to borrow a term from Elon Musk, it's once this singularity happens, then we really have a launch pad for preserving and extending the light of consciousness in the universe.
Okay, so talking about the technological singularity there, if you're not familiar with that, you might want to have a look at what that is. But basically, when AI becomes more intelligent than humans, and then more intelligent than all the humans put together, and then really it takes over, and we just don't know what's going to happen after that. But some of these people want to accelerate that. The accelerationists want to accelerate that, see where it goes. And some people say that that could be just years away. That's been the talk in the last year or two, how it's increasing, accelerating. It might drop back for a while, but that's the thought, and that's what they want to do.
It gives a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
I think when a lot of people think about Peter Thiel and, the ideology of Peter Thiel, two figures that come to mind are Curtis Yarvin and then maybe, for real heads, Nick Land.
So Curtis Yarvin has recently done podcasts with the New York Times. In fact, after Trump got elected, if you go and listen to that, it's pretty incredible stuff. He basically wants a monarchy, a dictator. He said that America should get over its fear of dictators, and then we have Trump. So it's not saying the quiet part out loud because they have been saying it if you've been paying attention.
Is a right accelerationist that writes a lot similarly to Yarvin. They both want to dissolve the state and replace it with like a CEO monarch and, have this like super authoritarian network state kind of.
So guess who that is? Guess who the CEO is? Elon Musk, with Trump being like the chair of the board. I mean, this is what Yarvin sees and wants, and he'd be pretty happy with what he sees going on at the moment.
Situation where like American democracy is gone and it's replaced with a government that is run like a startup, and it's red pilled. They call it the dark enlightenment, and Peter Thiel is into this stuff. He's been very supportive of Yarvin, has actually given Yarvin startup funding. They hang out and party together in what I can only assume is the single worst party on planet Earth. Like I guess it's good that Peter Thiel is gay because no women are coming to that party.
Yeah.
That is a sausage fest. It's just a sausage fest. So it's just like this weird sort of combination of incel ideology and like racist, what they would call like race science, pro-eugenics. There's a very big obsession with IQ and a lot of these traditional alt-right type ideas. Curtis Yarvin will say that he isn't alt-right because he's like, well, I'm actually a monarchist. Like I'm not into Hitler, I'm into Queen Elizabeth. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, you're a fascist.
You're absolutely right. A lot of them are
It's true. He doesn't hide this if you listen to what Yarvin says. And he's one of, close to Peter Thiel.
Doesn't Yarvin explicitly say that he believes that white people have higher IQs than black people?
So he has supposedly, in a satirical way, said that black people are genetically inclined to be slaves.
This is Thiel's like favorite philosopher.
Yeah.
Peter Thiel definitely seems like he's on the kind of openly right-wing side of it. He's not, he's not fucking around with like, I'm trying to think of like, Reid Hoffman or even like a Sam Altman type that's like, oh, like this is going to change our society and it might be hard, but like it's all going to be so nice afterwards and we're going to relax. Peter Thiel is like, nope, we're creating libertarian utopias and we're not going to make the same mistake twice about giving the bitches the right to vote,
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments what you think about Peter Thiel. Do you know much about him already? Have you heard this before, or did you learn something new today? Let me know in the comments what you think. And also, if you've liked this episode, if you got value out of this episode, do hit that like button to help the algorithm to spread it to more people. It really does help. Now, if you're watching this episode on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to a related episode. Do go and see that now if you want to. Put that there in a second. Also, do go and see that Dystopia Now podcast. It's a new one, and it's really worth listening to. I do enjoy it. Also, I'm going to put a subscribe link on screen. Do subscribe if you want to get more of this kind of content from me in the future. I'm doing this every day. I'm going to do a longer one tomorrow, a kind of recap of the week. If you want to have a look at that, look out for that one. And also, thanks for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one.